Would you not believe that? Right now, my computer just froze and it's updating. Can you believe that? I have to learn one of these days not to do that. Well, let's see what I can do here.
The views, opinions.
Well, gee, then it started and I'll have to update it. Basically, what it's going to say with the views of everything we say or what the guest says, you can't hold us responsible. That's what it was going to say. So hopefully this will come back up in here in a minute or two. Anyway, in the news today, can you believe that? I can't believe the computer did that to me. I got to remember unplug the internet off of that sucker. China moon mission, they just had, they actually took some cotton seeds and they started sprouting on the moon. I'm just wondering, why didn't we take corn seeds when we went to the moon and see if they would germinate on the moon? I mean, here China is already ahead of us with cotton seeds. Now, the other thing is, do you think that the U.S. should withdraw from NATO? Now, there's talk coming out of the Capitol that somebody wants to pull us out of NATO. How do you feel about that? Do you feel we should stay in NATO and support NATO, or do you think we should pull out? Now, if you went to your mailbox today or yesterday and you got a little letter from the IRS stating they're going to seize your assets, I don't have a response to you other than the good news is the IRS is calling back 46,000 employees. But if you got that letter, I mean, and you tried calling the other day when you got it, you wouldn't get anybody. I really feel that the IRS should put a freeze on what asset seizing till they get their act together and get their employees back doing what they need to do, because I tell you, it's going to be kind of scary. I mean, if I got a letter that the IRS is going to seize my property and you can't call and talk about it and you got only a certain amount of time, I don't know. Imagine now, too, when these employees go back to the IRS, I mean, the backlog is going to be horrible, let alone even answering the phone, because after all these weeks, I'm sure there's going to be so many people have questions. So that phone is going to be, I got a funny feeling even getting through to the IRS is going to be totally impossible. Let's see if I got my computer working now. I think I do. I don't know. It's not. Yeah, let's see.
The views, opinions, and representations expressed on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network and its website are those of the hosts, guests, and participants, and are not necessarily those of or endorsed by the network, its affiliated stations and broadcasts, the management, other hosts, or advertisers of the network. The shows found on the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network can, but do not necessarily, promote any particular lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only, and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or condition, or give any medical or legal advice.
You're listening to my friend Gary Anderson on Night Dreams Talk Radio, the best in paranormal radio.
Well, thank you, John. But after this morning and this afternoon here, the two bad things had happened today. First, the car wouldn't start, and then the computer froze on me. What can I say? We got a great guest here tonight. Mark, are you there?
I am here.
Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for a minute I thought I even lost you. I run eight computers to do the show, and the one that has all the bumper music and all the legal stuff, it just sat there and decided to update on Windows 10 on me without any warning.
Yeah, I've been there myself. It never fails. When you're ready to go, the computer wants to update.
Oh, yeah. And if it does it the wrong time, I keep meaning to unplug the internet cable to it, when I'm not on that computer. But anyway, why don't you tell everybody your whole name and what you do and what you've done and all this stuff, and then we can get into some interesting things here tonight.
Yeah, sure. My name is Mark Keyes, and I'm the director of the Pennsylvania Paranormal Association, and that's a resolution-based paranormal team. Our goal is to go out and help those people who are scared of hauntings, identify what's going on, and hopefully stop that haunting for people. And I'm also a 25-year veteran of the Pennsylvania State Police. I was a detective for years with the state police, and also a public information officer working with the media and the public. So I got to meet a lot of really good people as well as bad people, but it was nice to do the public relations, to get out and work with the public and a lot of kids, and just a lot of fun doing that stuff.
Oh, I bet it would. And as being a detective in the past, that probably helps you a lot for what you do now.
Yeah, it definitely helped set up the way you run investigations, collect evidence, interview clients, and just investigate in general. We take a very objective look at everything that's going on.
Well, a while back, probably about 6 months ago, I had a retired detective from the New York Police Department. He actually handled the criminal cases such as murders and stuff like that. And when he retired, is one thing, being a hypnotist is always what he, wanted to be. And he went and took the courses to become certified. And then he started doing past regressions. And, I asked him when he was on the show, I said, what was that like? Being a detective, now you're taking people in trying to find out their prior lives. And what he told me is, it came in really handy because he actually started investigating some of the people, what they were saying when they were, under. And he said some of those cases that, the people, the name and all the information they gave, he actually was able to trace down.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, that's a fantastic resource when you have the ability or at least other resources out there to be able to add to investigations.
Yeah, but then I think on the other hand, it could be scary. But, it makes me wonder, when you start talking about people that, have claimed that they had like 5, 6, 7, 8 lives prior. I mean, if you investigate somebody, as you put them under and they tell you who they were and their name and all this stuff, and, it verifies, and you go back maybe another time and it verifies. It just makes me wonder, do people actually come back, from, being reincarnated?
Yeah, it's pretty wild. And one thing as criminal investigators, we like to find as much evidence as we can to back up information. So, just like our team uses psychic mediums, and I've used that in my professional occupation, and it's one resource out of many to be able to gather information. But when you can go out and actually gather factual evidence to back that up, it's fantastic. And that's really interesting what he's doing.
Oh, yeah. Now, what got you into what you're doing now? I mean, it's a big difference from becoming and been a detective, now doing the paranormal.
Yeah, it was kind of a pretty wild switch, but almost a very natural progression in a way. I started out with this overwhelming curiosity into whether psychic ability was real, whether hauntings actually were real, and I can't kind of consider myself what I call an optimistic skeptic. I really wanted to believe all this stuff was true, but something just was not doing it for me. And when I was young, I had, it was probably 12 years old. I had a very minor incident out in my backyard in a very rural area, no real nearby houses. And I was cutting grass, home alone, by myself, and I heard somebody yell my name very loud, and I actually jumped because I thought I was alone. I turned around, and there was nobody there. Uh-huh. So that kind of, got me thinking, was that, a ghost or, I've heard of spirit guides, angels, was it something like that? Was it just ambient noise, that I thought was my name? Never really sure. And a little bit later in life, a few years later, I was indoors and had something similar happen. So that further propelled me with curiosity into hauntings and psychic ability. And I was not a psychic. I did not live in a haunted house, but just had this overwhelming curiosity mixed with just a fascination with everything science fiction. I loved, any kind of science fiction, TV show, book, shows came out like Sightings. Just I dug into all of those shows, just really enjoyed it. And I got to a point in my life where there was just still this nagging curiosity. I wanted to know, was all this stuff real? And, reading about it or watching something on TV just wasn't doing it for me. So I physically had to go implant myself into this world, and that was the only way I was going to be able to, prove it or dismiss it for myself. And my wife and I actually joined a local group. Her father had worked with a man who was in this local paranormal group, and he got us in, and we investigated with them for a couple years. And I actually went through 2 years and still really had more questions than answer. I didn't really experience anything in those 2 years, and going over evidence after investigations, a couple minor things which kind of, kept me going. I thought, okay, this is a little weird. Let's look into it a little bit more. And, my fascination just kept growing and growing, and I wanted to learn more and more. And, here we are about 12 years later. I actually run a resolution team now.
Oh, wow. Now, what have you ever ran into that you couldn't really debunk? Something that really happened that made you go home at night and not be able to sleep?
Well, I don't think there was anything yet that has made me not be able to sleep. I'm just absolutely fascinated, and honestly, this happens for a lot of investigators. When you do experience something supernatural out on investigating, quite often that becomes very addictive, and you want to see more of that. And honestly, it's few and far between. It's not like watching a lot of TV shows where they might have several days combined into a half hour or an hour where you're actually seeing evidence, and the evidence isn't even all that great. But it takes time to actually witness things and collect things. I guess unless you're a psychic medium, you might see stuff all the time. But for the average person, it's not every case. And one thing that just stands out for me, we did a case just outside of Philadelphia City in a suburb called Upper Darby, and the claims by the clients were just kind of so overwhelming that I thought they were exaggerating. And after interviewing, they were very intelligent people. They had great jobs, quite normal, and my curiosity was piqued. I thought it was a great case to maybe go and debunk a lot of their claims, but also to see if any of what they were reporting was real. And they were reporting some typical things, seeing shadows, doors opening and closing, hearing noises like footsteps, TV turn on and off by itself. But a few things stood out for me that I found very interesting. One claim was nearly on a daily basis, they would have quarters thrown all over the house. Like one quarter in a bedroom, another quarter down in the living room, maybe one in the basement, and they didn't know where they were coming from. They couldn't find any significance to it, but they'd be sitting in the room and see or hear a quarter go flying across the room.
Now, we're talking about money, right?
Yes, yeah.
Now, was it
25-cent quarter?
Were they old quarters, or were they kind of like the current mint quarters? Out of curiosity.
No, they were a mix, and nothing really. That was one of the questions I had. Did there seem to be any commonality between the quarters, any pattern or anything? And it was just a mix of coins. It didn't really seem to have any patterns. But that was definitely one thing that stood out for me from other cases that I investigated. I hadn't